I kind of fell into this whole internal communications thing. Does anyone know who this guy is? Seth Godin? Anyone follow? Any kind of Seth fans in the room? Yeah, yeah. Ish, yeah. Well, I followed his blog for a long time, and he tells the story of in the early 90s, he got a job working for a struggling software company. Now, this software company, what it did was it turned science fiction books into multimedia CD-ROMs, if you remember those. And his project, the project he was given, was he had to turn like a book into a CD-ROM. And the whole company was relying on him doing this. But the only problem was he wasn't given enough time. He had a Christmas ship date. He wasn't given enough engineers, and he wasn't, he wasn't given enough resources. So, faced with this problem, he decided to start a newsletter. Basically, what he did was every week he'd write about all the stuff, all the challenges that his team had faced. He wrote about all the super things they'd done, and he shared all the great stories. And he would print it out, and then he would put it in people's pigeonholes around the company. And after, I think, at the end of the first month, he had 6 engineers defecting to his team to kind of help out. And before long, almost everybody in the company was pitching in some way to help his project. And he ended up that he met his target, the software shipped, and it basically saved the company. Now, they didn't switch because just of the newsletter, but these people started pitching in because they wanted to be part of something that mattered. And stories are a great way to let people know that what you do matters. I used to be part of something that, matters a lot. I was part of something that's very a noble cause. About 6 years ago, I was responsible for content marketing at Foxy Bingo. If you were to come into our office in Foxy Bingo, well, first of all, you would see this guy's head on the wall. But it would just look like a normal office. There was kind of free jelly beans, a nice coffee machine. But beneath the surface, there was loads of interesting stories happening. And I'd just read Seth's blog post about this newsletter that he started. And I thought, well, I kind of want to have something like that myself. So I decided to start a newsletter about all the great stories that were going on in the company. So that's me starting my newsletter. There was this guy who joined, and he was going to be the VIP manager of Foxy Bingo, right? The VIP manager. And this is what he thought his job would be like. Wining and dining, high-flying players. He was going to be flying back and forth between Monte Carlo and Las Vegas. And then he joined the company, and he found out that actually most of his time was spent talking to Edna from Huddersfield, because this was our profile of a VIP at Foxy Bingo. And he told me that to do his job, he needed to know 3 things. He needed to know how Edna's husband's broken leg was, which of her 5 grandchildren had been written out of the will that week, and what had happened on Jeremy Kyle. So he told me this story, and I thought it was quite funny, and I said, please, can I use this in my newsletter? And he kind of agreed. So I went back to my desk, and I remember I wrote the story out, and I didn't have any subscribers to my newsletter, so I went to the the to box in my email, and I had a very advanced targeting strategy. Basically, if I could see you from my desk, you would be on this email. So I went, okay, Larry, Mark, Michael Bogey, okay, and I think I had 16 people on my first issue. So I sent it out, and then I looked around, and I could see people kind of chuckling a little bit and nodding, and they kind of liked it. So I thought, okay, I'll do another one. The next week, I was talking to a guy called Santosh, who was one of our developers, and we had this water cooler, and you had to fill up your water like that and press a button, and it was the slowest water pourer ever, and it took like a minute. So while I was doing that, Santosh was kind of bending my ear about, I think he was talking about the difference between true random numbers and pseudo-random numbers, and he was talking about the computational methods for random number generation, or whatever he was going on about. And just as I was falling asleep, he told me oh, and I'm going up on the roof in a minute, the roof of the building, and I said, why are you going up on the roof of the building? And he said, well, we just put a windmill on the top. And I said, why have you put a windmill on the top of the building? And he says, well, computers can't think of random numbers, okay? They're like not, they don't have the imagination. So they need organic input. And basically they put a windmill on the roof so it would measure the speed of the wind and that would influence what balls would come out. So I thought it was quite interesting that, you know, the gust of the north wind would influence what kind of jackpot you would get, who would win. So I thought, okay, that's going to be my next newsletter. So I went back to my desk and I typed it out. And this time my targeting had become a bit more advanced. So instead of it just being who I could see from my desk, it was now everyone I could see on the way to the toilet. So I was like, okay, Laura Probert, Warren Lush, okay, you guys are all on. I think I had about 36 people on now on this newsletter. And I got some good feedback and people seemed to like it. The next week, I had a few problems. Basically, a few deadlines kind of coalesced and I was just quite busy. And I thought, well, you know what, I won't send one this week. No one's going to care. I mean, I had a bit of good feedback, but it hadn't exactly set the company on fire. So I thought, well, it's not going to matter. So I came out of my meeting and I kind of sat down at my desk and I started eating my sandwich and I looked at my emails. And all I saw was about 20 people had got in touch. Where is this newsletter? Did I miss it? Oh, and by the way, can you put the Gibraltar operations team on? Because I think we've been left off. And I was amazed that, that people were so interested in these kind of simple little stories. And it just taught me that people have an unlimited appetite for nice little stories about where they work.